the Dallas Mavericks, they finished 43-32, the 7th seed, and I think the storyline for this year is Luka Doncic for MVP. I think, in my opinion, he's going to be the MVP of the NBA, and he's the betting favorite, so a lot of people have that same opinion. They added Josh Richardson, which he's a good shooter, a good ISO scorer, and a good defender. James Johnson, who's a rough rider, a glue guy you need on your team. And they added a guy from Orlando that I like, Wes Iwundu. You know, he was pretty good in Orlando in the second half of the season.
He had a good draft, too.
He's a defender. Yeah, they drafted Josh Green, Tyrell Terry, and Tyler Bay. So they had a pretty good draft. They lost Seth Curry, DeLon Wright, Justin Jackson, and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. And I think outside of Seth Curry, none of those other guys really matter. I think Seth Curry mattered because he's such a sharpshooter. But, I mean, I think this lineup got better defensively, which is what they needed. When you have the best offensive rating in NBA history, you can dip a little bit down from that, still be a great offensive team, and I think they did that. They'll still be great offensively, but I think what's great about them is that they got way better defensively now. Now they can have a starting lineup of Luka, Richardson, Hardaway Jr., Porzingis, Kleba, and I think they'll be pretty solid this year. I really do. I believe in this Mavericks team. I think they're still one piece away, but I believe in this team, and I believe in Luka.
I agree. This is the one few times I agree with young Joel Moran. I think this is a team that's built to definitely be successful. Just like Denver, I think they're a third dragon away from having that three-headed dragon and being a real dominant force in the league. I think Luka's the head of the snake. You got Porzingis. Now, Porzingis' injury, I think he comes back in February, if I'm not mistaken. So I know they're going to –
I heard he's out until at least late January. So
okay. So I know that's going to be – Luka's going to have to definitely carry, which I think is going to either help his MVP case or kill his MVP case, because if he's carrying and they're winning, that's definitely going to propel him to the top of the MVP race. But he definitely should be the betting favorite. I like Josh Richardson. I am high on Josh Green. I think he can definitely be that guy for Dallas, slotting in at that two guard for the future. I think he's really good. He's really athletic. He can finish at the basket, and he has a nice form. He could definitely turn into a sharpshooter. I like Tyler Berry. I think he can be a great 3-and-D wing for them coming down the line. I think keeping Dorian Finney-Smith, their wing defender, getting Josh Richardson to replace Seth Curry was good. He can play D. He can create his own basket. He's not as good of a shooter, but he can do all other things. Dwight Powell's coming back from an ACL tear he had last year, so that's going to be a good. Maxi Kleber's still out there. Willie Cauley-Stein they re-signed, and they re-signed Trey Burke, who was underrated last year for them. It was a really good piece for them at that point guard spot, and they still have Jalen Brunson. So this is a team fit perfectly for Luka Doncic. And shout out to Rick Carlisle and Mark Cuban. I feel like Rick Carlisle and Luka Doncic is going to be here for a while, building this Dallas franchise. And what way to back up the Dirk dynasty by getting Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis to carry the torch and hopefully get them a ring. I think this is phenomenal for Dallas fans. They deserve it. They're one of the best fans in the world, and I think they're going to be really good this year. I have them 4-7 just because of the Porzingis injury. I think it might put them in a hole, but I think once he gets back, they're going to get him in tune, they're going to get it rolling, and they're going to be in that 4-7 range. I think they can get as high as 3, but I would have them in the 4-7 range just because of the Porzingis injury.
Yeah, I agree. I give a lot of credit to Mark Cuban for, first of all, realizing what he could get in Luka Doncic, going out and getting him when he did. And now they're making the perfect moves to surround him. I love what they did this offseason. Bringing in Josh Richardson is going to add to that perimeter defense that hurt them last year. And I get it. Losing Seth Curry is going to hurt that offense, but you're still going to be trotting out an offense, including Luka, Tim Hardaway, Kristaps when he gets back. Josh Richardson is no slouch offensively. Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, like these guys can still play offensively. And I also love to go out and get James Johnson, although it might not be the most impactful move on the court. What it does is it gives you an enforcer for if anybody wants to come in and try and pull a Marcus Morris this season on Luka Doncic, That's not happening with James Johnson on your team. I can promise you that. And that is the reputation he's built around the league. He's a former martial arts fighter. He's not going to let anything happen to Luka. And I think that that's an important thing to have on your team when you have a young star like that. You know, you want to protect him. He's your asset. And I think James Johnson brings a nice grittiness to this team that they didn't necessarily have last year. The one thing that I think will hurt them, like Riv mentioned, the Kristaps injury. When does he come back? How long does it take him to really get back to form? Because even if he comes back on, say, January or February 1st, it probably takes him a month to get back into the swing of things, and that's being generous. So I don't think they're going to have the best regular season, but I don't think that that's an indictment of who they are. I think that come playoff time, they can compete with anybody. And they will be one of those teams to watch coming out of the Western Conference, right up there with the Lakers and Clippers. But it all starts with Luka, and what he does this season is what the Mavericks will do. I have him as my MVP coming into the season, and that is why I'm high on them, especially come playoff time. It might not seem like that in my ranking, which we'll get to, but I am high on them come playoff time.
I mean, honestly, when you look at the West, outside of the Lakers, who are probably going to be the first seed, you can finish anywhere in the standings from 2 to 7, and you can beat any of those teams in the first round. If the second seed is the Nuggets, the Mavericks can beat the Nuggets in the first round. They can beat the Clippers as well. So it's really, the West is open. It's up in the air. Outside of whoever faces the Lakers in the first round, everything is pretty much up in the air, and everybody can have a chance. But I mean, I like the Mavericks bench too. Jalen Brunson, I loved him coming out of Villanova. He's a really good, solid player. Trey Burke is still there. You have Willie Cauley-Stein, Dorian Finney-Smith, James Johnson, as you mentioned. I still can't believe the Knicks traded Kristaps Porzingis, Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway Jr. for Dennis Smith Jr. and 2 late first-round picks. That's probably one of the worst trades. We gave them our star and our role players for Dennis Smith Jr., who's struggling to solidify himself in the Knicks rotation. But needless to say, I think the Mavericks, they're probably going to cruise by the regular season. Depending on where they finish in the standings, it's going to help or hurt Luka's MVP case. That being said, I have them finishing as the 5th seed in the Western Conference. I think that Kristaps' injury is going to hurt them, but I can also see them finishing as high as 3 and maybe 2. And I can see them finishing as low as 6.
Yeah, I have them finishing 6, and that's no knock on them. I just think the Kristaps injury is going to hurt them for a little bit to start the season. But when he comes back and he starts playing well, like we know he can, they're going to be primed, ready for playoff time. I do think that if Kristaps comes back and hits the ground running, they could get up to as high as 2. You know, even with Luka, if Luka has that MVP season that we are projecting out of him, I could see them in that 4 or 5 range, but I don't see them going any lower than 6 or 7. I have them at 6, and that's solely based on the Porzingis injury and how much time he misses. We don't know. But like Joel said, anywhere from 2 to 7 or 8 in this playoff projections is like you're throwing darts essentially.
I would agree with you, but I would even go even farther than saying I feel like 1 to 8 is not a set in stone because of the Lakers. I feel like they're gonna sit some guys and they're not gonna play as much. So I feel like 1 and 8 with the Lakers. LeBron's probably gonna sit a few 80s injuries. He gets hurt a lot in the regular season. The Clippers, Kawhi is gonna sit a lot. You know, Paul George has injury concerns too. I feel like anybody's can finish at 1. Even Denver can drop to get to 1 seed. So I feel like 1 day is gonna be scattered. But at the end of the day, I don't think a lot of teams can beat the Lakers. But I know outside of the Lakers, any team could beat anybody. The Clippers could beat Portland. Portland could beat the Clippers. Dallas could beat the Clippers. Dallas could beat Portland. I feel like it's going to be really interesting come playoff time in the West when each of these teams plays because you can go either way with most series. But I would have, like I said, I would have 4 to 7 is Dallas is my ranking for them. I feel like the Porzingis injury could hurt them, could help them. But I think I'm going to lean more towards hurt them because he's just that good. So I'll have them 6, 7, no Porzingis. When Porzingis gets back and hits the ground running like I know he would, it would go up to about 4 or 5, maybe even catch 3.